Contrary to popular belief, Nuber's stay in the Empire of Ligus was not short in duration. It spanned over many months, and the story that told of his endeavors shortened the grueling yet rewarding journey Nuber partook in. Most people only really know about the highlights of the journey, like the Battle of Omig Oolagar, the Great Shocker Destruction, and the glorious training sessions. But, over the many days that Nuber was in the Great Empire, there were often slow times. Times of peace, tranquility, and equilibrium in an upturned state. Yet these times were often worse for Nuber's well-being, as he was forced to scrounge for nourishment in a barren world. You know that Nuber is desperate when he attempts to find food in an old rusty flask that's original purpose involved toxic, fetid oil. At this moment, Nuber is simply aiming to find some kind of morsel to eat, and lucky for him, he will get a much-deserved break. He didn't actually find food itself, but instead found a method for obtaining food, a sharpened, black, and deadly throwing star. Because of Nuber's general ignorance, he cannot safely handle the thing, as you can see. But despite the beginning mishap and the horrible state of hunger that Nuber was in, he was still excited about the prospect of easily getting a kill. You see, using a sword for combat with foes is easy, but hunting, well, that is a different story altogether. Nuber's prime target is a warding ball, like the one he slaughtered after it seemed to make his trio of tools fade away, prior to his engagement with Omig Oolagar. Now that Nuber has a tool, he must train with it. If he is to hit a small target like a warding ball, he needs to be accurate. Luckily, he found a perfect spot for training, a wood plank with soft cardboard attached to it. It was a little large and easy, but this was his first time. At least, that was what he thought. Nuber, from a distance of about 10 feet, couldn't even hit the cardboard. And as most people know, Nuber becomes rageful when he believes he is wronged. Every hit would miss the board altogether and end up reflecting off the hardwood or going clear past. This awakening was a massive blow to Nuber, as his plan to find food was rotting before his eyes. And if it couldn't get any worse, there was another issue with the shark. Nuber was prone to hurting himself. The points are sharp, and if grabbed incorrectly, can cause penetration. Obviously, this injury was minor, but it was not the first in a long line of things that aggravated Nuber. But despite the injury, Nuber remained persistent. He knew a few things. 1, that this was not the hardest thing that he had done or would do in the future. 2, that this was crucial to his very survival. And 3, that his survival was directly woven into the survival of an entire empire. His life was responsible for millions of others' lives and the literal preservation of the world, so he could handle a little boo-boo and suck it up. It's the kind of spirit that is required for the archetypal hero. Without it, Nuber would wither away into a frame of his former self, like so many others do today. Him being built different allows for him to carry the burden of everybody before him that contributed to the decay of Ligus. He returned to training, and even though he was persistent, he was still not able to hit the cardboard from an embarrassing distance. Because Nuber is technically human, he is prone to the rage, like others are. After his temper tantrum, Nuber was tired out. He decided to rest at his favorite bench and contemplate what he should do next. His hunger was growing more intense by the hour, not lending him a helping hand. He knew that the next day would involve more training, but he had already seen slight improvements. The verdict wasn't ruled, though. Bedtime. The morning had come, and the sun was rising just over the tree line. Nuber had figured the best hunting time for warding balls is mid-morning, so he gave himself time to train. Nuber decided that going to rest early in the previous evening would allow him to get more rest and help alleviate his seething anger. But now that he was up, Nuber knew that he must begin training immediately to maximize his time. His situation was getting to the point that he needed food quickly that day. Training was not too difficult, but finding a warding ball could prove a challenging affair. It was all luck-based, and Nuber couldn't truly trust that. Because of Nuber's general increase in skill over the past day, he decided to disregard the soft cardboard target for the smaller, thinner, and tougher-to-hit wood pole. This may seem irrational, as Nuber was unable to even hit the big target consistently the previous day, but he is just preparing himself for that real-world situation. The average warding ball is about 10 inches in diameter, which the pole is smaller than. But training with the harder-to-hit target is good for multiple reasons. For one, severing a ball is best done in the central section, which is limited in size. Throw too far to the side of a ball risks the shrew from bouncing off and thereby alerting the ball. Additionally, Nuber may be moving when he attacks a ball. It is best to be able to hit a smaller target and then have your real specimen be larger than vice versa. After about an hour of straight training, Nuber is able to consistently contact the wood pole from a fair distance. Like has been said before, Nuber is the blood of a human, but the mind of an evolutionary spectacle. He is often ignorant, but not stupid, unknowing, but not unable to be knowing. And Nuber is getting better at controlling himself. Some shots are still missed, but because he is making most of them, his fears are slowly being assuaged. He realizes now that a throwing star hit is all he needs. He doesn't need to stick into the wood. With that, his accuracy rate is close to 100%. As all of this is occurring, Nuber's training, that is, the chaos of the Empire of Legus is still growing. Little creatures of the area are on alert because of the rising, and are crying out for help in the form of putrid organic sounds. At this point, the Great Chakra is still in place, but both Great Roots have been destroyed in their entirety. Omig Oolagar is enraged at the current state of affairs, and is attempting to send out the kin of the protectors of the Great King's buddies. And yet, in this moment, all Nuber cares about is that food in his stomach. Strange how priorities are assigned in this world. Speaking of priorities, Nuber's current sub-priority is taping the deceased remains of a blue warding ball to the wood structure for more accurate target practice. This will more accurately simulate the physical and biological behavior of a warding ball in the wild. Taping the ball to the wood is a difficult feat, though, because of the wetness of the entire area. This particular kind of tape is prone to water defectiveness, unfortunately for Nuber. As he struggles to get the ball appended to the wood, it is important to have a basic understanding of the warding ball. The aforementioned thing is an actual living organism, not too separated from a human, insect, or reptile. It cannot see because of its lack of eyes, cannot hear for the same reason, but it can operate using magnetic forces. This is why Nuber's sword would prove ineffective, as its iron-based construction would alert the ball far before he could slice it. The shuriken also contains some iron, but far less. Also, its fast movement fails to give the warding ball enough reaction time to move away. The balls have magnetic sensing abilities because of the iron powder trapped inside of them, which is eternally suspended and equally distributed. When a ball is popped, it is doomed, as any iron dust leaving it will permanently decalibrate its senses, rendering it a living shell. There is a real, factual reason as to why warding balls seem to appear in areas right before a tragic event happens. Chaos Leader Omig Oolagar will often employ magnetics to alter the environment, especially metal-based things like Nuber's tools. Simply, it is the easiest way to physically alter the environment without using energy-consuming magical means. The magnetic stimulus of the area prior to the wrongdoing by the Chaos Leader attracts warding balls because of their composition. This is what led to their name, warding, as individuals see them and leave the area. The reason Nuber wants to hunt a warding ball is that they have exceptional nutritional value. To this day, it is unclear what a warding ball is made out of, aside from the metal powder contained inside of it. Some suspect that the casing is a sort of thick parietal membrane made out of flesh. Others suspect artificial play, possibly rubber or latex. But all that is truly known for sure is that consuming the outer shell of a warding ball is a good source of energy. Perhaps it is because the iron fragments slowly enrich it with vital minerals? Nobody knows now, which most likely means nobody will ever know. Ligus bears many hardened academic scholars throughout its far reaches, which makes the mysteries that still remain even more mysterious in nature. These Ligusian academics are responsible for the advancements that Omig Oolagar wrongfully harnesses every day, like his use of the two, luckily now shattered, ancient roots to preserve his force field. They did not intentionally cause that to happen, but their work for a good cause did lead to it. Their locations are still generally classified, but it is understood their numerous archives are located on the farthest corners of the Empire of Ligus. The archives themselves are colossal towers filled with millions of ancient texts, but are heavily guarded with magical and physical means. The archives and scholars are of little importance to Omig Oolagar, though, as they are so disconnected from the Empire at this point that they have not received any new information in decades. After taping the blue warding ball's remains to the wood, only one hit from the throwing star knocked it down. This was enough to set Nuber over the edge. Although vastly unconfirmed and highly conspiratorial, one theory of a few Ligusians states the scholars created the warding balls to warn individuals about coming magnetic attacks. Logically, this makes sense, but it assumes the academics somehow found out about the current situation, which contradicts traditional wisdom. It would explain the dense energy released from the balls when digested, though. You can see Nuber is currently on the edge of having a rage attack, after going crazy on the ball's remains and throwing a minor fit after the shuriken fell off the nail. But that is all about to change. After all his training, Nuber had found a warding ball in the wild, this time a pink variant. The variants are all equally powerful, but this was satisfying as Nuber's least favorite color is pink. He very cautiously approached the ball as not to magnetically alert it. After successfully striking the warding ball with a sharp star, Nuber realized that the kill was not complete. He rushed back to the ball and it attempted to hop back away from him. He was able to stomp on it, deflating it of its cloud of iron dust and killing it in the process. Nuber was extremely relieved concerning the fact that he now had plenty of food, and proud of his accomplishment in learning a new skill in a day and using it successfully. He now made his way to a site of burning he had seen many times before in his previous travels. It was right near the area where he fought the first King's Buddy's protector. Nuber had to cook the warding ball's carcass to make sure all contaminants were removed, and to soften up its shell enough to cut. Nuber believed that he deserved a rest after his long past few days. When sitting on the log, Nuber thought about the battles to come, or the battle, Omig Oolagar. This was certainly a boost physically and mentally, but the fight was not going to be fair. Omig Oolagar had been able to harness powers of the planet and the stars himself previously, and Nuber was just a simple man. He knew he must train more than he had with the shuriken, just to have a chance at beating his foe. He also knew he must do everything before the fight that he could to tip the scales in his favor. But, in the meantime, Nuber enjoyed his much-deserved ball. It was extremely tasty, partly because of the blood and sweat put into it. He cooked it perfectly, and cut small pieces to eat. The next day, Nuber planned on exploring to find the Great Shocker, Omig Oolagar's tool to keep his defenses alive. Besides training, that was the last objective before the fight.
So good.
But a little more exploration, even separate from that, could only be beneficial. No other creatures in the Ligusian wilds could pose a threat enough to Nuber to harm him negatively, and he could only gain something new, something more powerful. Before departing to the burning bushes, though, something caught Nuber's eye, a strange plant creation. It was a fuzzy white ball, or gall, decorated with pink patches. That particular specimen is known as a wool sour gall, and is inedible. Nuber did not know this.